Hello, hi, my name is Bella and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be diving into how I made Sodium, which is a short little less than 2-minute animated narration short story kind of thing. I don't really know what it technically qualifies under, but it's a project, I made it, and I want to go over how I made it. I mean, this channel is for voice acting. I made an original project, there's voice acting in it. I might as well go over it. I think it's cool when creators, either big studios or small studios, independent creators, show their process of how they made something, because I like that stuff. I want to see the nuts and bolts. I want to see how they put the things together, their creative vision, and how it was supposed to be and how it isn't, and all that kind of stuff, you know? So in this video, we are going to be diving into the art, the script, the inspiration, the music, the video editing, every single thing, even though it's only a short little project. There's still so much that goes into it. And I will put this right here for now. If you don't want any spoilers, even though it's not that spoilery to begin with, it's just a short little concept that I animated. In a way, there's not really even that much animation in it. If you don't want to be spoiled about the story, I would highly suggest going to the original and seeing it first, and then coming back to this one, because I'll just be talking about it and the meaning and what's going on in it, or what could be going on in it. So if you don't want any spoilers and you want to see it first, I will leave a link to it or a card, something like that, one of those two, in the description or on this video. So then, without further ado, let's dive straight into it with how I decided I wanted to make this in the first place, which is inspiration. The inspiration is this human being, this dude, man, right here, Greg Bro Dude Man. I watch his videos a shit ton. I would say I watch his videos way too much, but if you don't know, banger content through and through, but one of his themes is like emergency broadcast horror. He reacts to a ton of videos like that, and I don't know which one it is because there's a handful, there's way too many of them. But if you don't know, emergency broadcast horror is like when, you know, the government interrupts your broadcast to tell you something scary. One of his videos where he reacts to a ton of original content and then goes out and makes his own, which is really cool, had a concept in there that inspired Sodium. Yeah, okay, I got this right on the first one. I don't know what that says about me, but I do watch his content a ton. So I will not spoil his own content. I will link to it, since I can put links in my videos now, yay. But essentially, water bad. You can see here, water very bad. And so with that concept, I figured I could just expand on it creatively in a different way. His is a lot more sinister and like foreboding, but I figured I would try to take this concept of water bad and then put it into my own little story or spin on it. So it's very much kind of related to his work, but I really love the concept. And from that concept, I did a script. Script was the next step of that process, where I did some research about like sciencey terms and how this concept could even come to be in the first place, because the entire concept of Sodium, again, this is where the spoilers come in, even though it's kind of said within the first couple seconds, is every single piece of water, body of water, that was exposed to open air during a really weird solar storm turned into salt water. And so I did some research on like the NOAA's website. I researched some space weather terms, some NASA website stuff, a little bit of Wikipedia thrown in here and there, just to see how, if something like this were to happen, how would it actually happen, even though it's totally fictional, just to kind of ground it a little bit in reality, but not too much. Yeah, the solar radiation storm with the strength beyond S5, that was, I had to look up the strengths of solar storms, stuff about the ionosphere, and various things like that to make it seem a little bit grounded in reality, because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I do love space. So yeah, once I figured out like the mechanisms of how it could be able to work, solar storm, ionosphere, XYZ, I decided to just expand that idea a little bit, not entirely settling on one cause or effect, because the solar storm, a solar radiation storm, I don't think ever has the potential to actually cause that kind of like water transformation. But you might be able to read into it, because it is kind of open-ended, of like the cause or the origin of like maybe it's an entity, or maybe it was like a supernova that sent a different kind of unknown energy throughout the solar system, and that kind of pulse wave transformed things. Who knows, right? I didn't really go into that too much. It could be just a science phenomenon that happened, and it's grounded in like a new science thing, or it could be something totally fantastical and an entity did it, or a cosmic horror beyond human conception, comprehension, one of those two words. So it's kind of open-ended there, but I think it's cool as its own standalone system, and maybe I go into it more in the future and make a sodium part 2, but like, yeah, I didn't want to expand on that too much. I wanted to keep it slightly vague. And then once I figured out the mechanics and like all that kind of stuff, the theoretical cause of an event like that, it's just going into like how that would affect things, like everything turned into salt water, you know, what wouldn't turn into salt water, establishing the premise that, you know, it's a totally new phenomenon and nobody knows like how it happens. So it's kind of implying that you don't really know how to fix it necessarily. And then everything in the atmosphere, clouds, rain, lakes, rivers, fuck. There we go. You know, clouds, rain, water, lakes, rivers, anything exposed to open air is kind of the running theory of these people. And then if there's anything left, it'll be underground, contained within the ice. And it would have to be deep within the ice in Arctic regions, because, anything exposed to the surface, right? So who knows how deep it could penetrate. Yeah, this section is kind of like establishing what was affected, what wasn't, and what might have to be done to have this not be a problem. And then for this last section here, it's kind of just implying that, okay, something has to be done. And so maybe a secret team of scientists have to find a way, establish a team to go out and secure these sites for potentially the government, an organization, the military, who knows, but like they need experts. You might be one of those experts. And so this is kind of like being directed towards the character or the team of characters that would be, in theory, the main characters, you know? And it kind of is left there. Kind of left on a really big, what would happen next? But that's kind of the concept that I wanted to go for. I didn't want to get into it to overscope the project, because I could very easily just dive straight into this and like get way in over my head, but I wanted to keep it somewhat workable. So once I had all of this laid out in a story format, in a somewhat script format, and the concept nailed down, I moved on to the next step of this whole thing, which is the art, the design, how I'm going to make this happen into a project that I can post somewhere that's not just like an audiobook or a digital download. So I decided to go with making it into an actual somewhat animated short thing, even though there's not going to be proper animation in it, if that makes sense. I mean, it has animation elements, but yeah, anyways, on to Krita. Welcome to Krita. This is one of my drawing programs of choice. I do have Photoshop, and I use Photoshop occasionally, but this entire project was made in Krita for the visuals, the art, the design. But yeah, everything is in this one Krita document. So let's just go through it piece by piece, I guess. I mean, I don't want to like be boring about it, but I'll have to go through these layer groups to see what's what here, because I did eventually separate the character from the background so that I can like, you know, isolate the background and like separate them onto their own different slides and then animate them in with fade-ins and Premiere, which was my video editing thing of choice. But let's see if I can find the individual things here. So the basic things without all of these different effects kind of looks like this. Turning this layer off. The background is super simple. It's just like a kind of like a color gradient thing that I painted in with, I think it was the rough paintbrush right here. Yeah, that seems like the one. I tried to go for something like dark and dingy because the idea for this was like an underground facility, like the setting, even though it's not like too deep underground, because in the audio and the music and the mixing, you can hear rain like on a tin roof. It's not in like a secret underground SCP facility kind of thing, but like it is supposed to be in like maybe a secret organization place. I don't know. I'm not making any sense, but you kind of get the picture there. So yeah, then I added in all of these one by one. These are all on the same layer, so I had to like cut them out individually in the edit. It would have been so simple to be like, okay, I'm going to draw these on their own individual documents and then like bring them into Premiere to then assemble the image. But I drew them all like this first, then with like the lasso tool, separated them out, made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 backgrounds to fade them in and layer them up. You'll see in Premiere, which is way more complicated than I needed to go with it. But I think it worked out pretty cool. Then I added little tape effects, which is literally like a white brush on a low opacity setting to kind of mimic the tape being plastered to the wall. Then you got the lighting in the scene. I imagine just like one key light off in the top right, like a desk lamp or something. Then adding a little bit more of that shine to it. But that's basically the background. You know, it's super scribbly, it's super painterly, sketchy, I guess, but it works. It certainly works. Oh, hang on. I did not know I still had these in this project. Those are layers I did not work with, but we got some sketching. Got some sketching going on. Okay, I didn't know I still had these in the project. So yeah, you can see my basic sketch for the character here. Using, I think it was, I know it's probably this brush, or this sketchy pencil brush, because I like the way it looks. And I do draw on a pen display tablet, not one of those Wacom Cintiqs. I think it's a Huion Canvas, one of those. I got it for refurbished for like $200 to $400, which is expensive, but it's not like $4,000 like a Cintiq can be. So very good, refurbished, used, but it works. It more than works. It does wonders. And so I'm very grateful to have that tool in my tool set. But yeah, that's the background, and then the character. We got the shadow. If we get rid of that layer, we can just have the basic skin tone here. The basic hair tone and all of the hair details are on these layers. Some of the shading is as well. Then we got these kind of highlights in the hair, some shadow on the face down there. Yeah, we got the light here, and then the halftone, not only on the hair, but on the light itself to kind of add some more detail and texture. And this is one of the reasons why I love using Krita, is because they have really, really good and really intuitive halftone brushes that actually feel like brushes. I mean, you can get really good halftone effects in Photoshop, of course. It just takes a little bit more effort, and I do know how to do it, but for like the quick illustration thing vibe of this series, maybe it's a series eventually, but this video, this project, I just wanted to keep it really, really simple. And so I find that the halftone brushes within Krita are that simplicity, you know? And then of course the line art. Then you combine all these things slowly but surely, you get a really full, really cool picture. You get art. I mean, this layer adds so much. I wanted to make it seem like really like impactful and like, oh, that this is a very big moment in human history, right? So it's like this kind of like, oh my God. It just adds that feeling, you know? Yeah, you can isolate the character and the backdrop, and I did have like a bold white outline at first. I needed to find ways to separate them and make it work because I didn't plan ahead that much. But yeah, I love the look and the feel of this, and I love the outline itself too, which was kind of tricky to pull off because I had to separate these layers multiple times to try to get the right ones to fade in Premiere. And so if I was to turn this layer off, you can see there's still jagged edges, right? It's not like locked to the character's silhouette. So I had to figure out how that worked, but I learned. All it really was trying to figure out the correct order to place things in and fade things in. But you know, super simple in the grand scheme of things. It's not like I needed to animate 10,000 frames to make an animated thing. It's literally just this with a fading in image in the background with all those separations and an audio track over it. That, I mean, again, I didn't want to overscope the project because I'm sure I could get bogged down in trying to learn animation properly, which I do want to do. But for a quick concept, a proof of concept, if you will, this is what I went with. And I think it turned out pretty good. Yeah, okay, and then this was the little title image, also made in Krita. I did a couple outlines. It's super simple. Just a very rough textured brush. I think it was this one. So yeah, you can see how it can really get scratchy and textured really quickly with that. But yeah, super simple, just drawing in the letters manually. It's not a font or anything. I'm sure I could turn this into a font if I really, really, really tried. I don't know how that works though. But I added a background to it in yellow to fit that kind of theme that was in the illustration, added some halftone brushes in a darker color, or added a halftone texture with a brush to this in a different color to make it a little bit different. Then I isolated that from the background so I could export it as, you know, a PNG that could have no background, and then it was on to audio. Okay, so here we are in Ableton for both the voice acting and the music for this entire project. I mean, it looks pretty simple. I mean, obviously, music can be way more complex than it looks, but I did want to keep it fairly simple for this project. Again, not overscoping. This is the raw vocal takes. You can see how long I tried to record this. I tried recording this for about 12 minutes, so not too long of a recording session, but that all came down to about 2 minutes, roughly, or less, about a minute and a half. So yeah, let's just get into this. I mean, I kind of already started, but that was the raw take. This is the script, so this is the actual full recording that made it into the actual short. So let's isolate the voice acting and I can show that to you on its own. Quiet. Listen up. Somewhere around the hours of 0200 and 0300, Noah's Geo. So yeah, this is the voice acting take that I went with, even though it has a little bit of some chair squeaking in it. That was intentional, or I tried to make it intentional because this is supposed to be someone like sitting at a desk addressing like a crowd of researchers, right? So it's like you got the chair rolling, some paper shuffling, stuff like that. Just a little bit of sound design work, you know? Then I have this for the tape machine. It was a little bit of just a tape machine foley from Cymatics. So again, super simple, but it's like this person's also like playing a tape or showing a slideshow as well. Listen up. I thought that was kind of a cool touch. And then the crowd, also a Cymatics sound effect. And this was, I'm guessing, in a free like sound effect pack. But they do music production typically, like trap, EDM, rap, hip hop, sound packs, sample packs, all that kind of stuff. But they have some like sounds and Foley samples too, and I used one here because I didn't want to go out and record an actual crowd. So I'm sure I could use like free sounds for it, but I also used these. So those two sound effects are super subtle, but I think it adds a lot of like space and room to everything. Quiet. And I think this is, yeah, it's a much longer sample, about to there, but I just kind of like trimmed it off to what I needed. Then we got the rain sample, also from Cymatics. So there's a couple different samples being mixed up through here, and then some thunder in the background, also cymatics. Again, I wanted to keep it fairly muffled, which is why I chose the muffled ones, because it's supposed to be indoors, not like outdoors, and it's supposed to be distant. But just to paint the rainy, dreary picture contained deep within the ice in Arctic regions. Super subtle. Maybe nobody even noticed, but I like putting that kind of stuff in there. And then the super simple music for the track, which I can actually solo, because you don't really get to hear a lot of it over my talking. And there you go. Just a super simple score. I mean, I called it a score. It's just like a couple notes, close together to create some dissonance, and then expand toward the end here with some higher tones in there. Some strings from Sign Factory or Sign stuff. The Berlin Free Orchestra, I think, is what I was using there. Again, free. Vital for the bass and the chords. Also free. This was a Make Pop Music preset, which is a YouTube channel creator, producer. So yeah, a couple Make Pop Music presets, and then a Sign player for the strings. And that's all you need, you know? That's basically the entire audio. When you put it all together, it really kind of like paints the picture quite vividly, in my opinion, and I think it's just so cool. So yeah. That's this. The only other thing I did was kind of like leave room here in the beginning for the title to fade in, and some room here at the end for the Premiere project to fade out. So that is the music and the audio and the voice acting. Let's see how I compiled it all into an actual thing to watch in Premiere. Okay, and welcome to Premiere. This is the entire Premiere Pro project. It is just a bunch of layers stacked on top of each other, and that's basically it. Here, I can scrub through, and you can see what I mean. It's just a couple fade-ins, the background is separated, and that's the entire thing, with a thank you for watching at the end, the audio down there. But like, it was like the quickest part of all of this, like compiling everything together, because I already had the timings in with the audio for the most part, or a rough idea of what I wanted. The entire thing, though, is separated out into these layers. The thing that did take a while, though, is separating the background out, so you can see all of these individual PNGs I isolated individually in Krita, or I think I might have pulled them into Photoshop to like cut them out and overlay a background. I can't really remember. I think I did it in Krita, but I genuinely cannot remember. But it's just going into every single image or the main image, and then making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever copies of it with only 1, then only 2, then only 3, and so on. I did all of the audio mixing and volume in Ableton, so I really didn't have to touch any of the audio tracks at all. For the fade in here at the beginning, it's just the main thing with, I think there is some blurring going on. Yeah, there's some blurring as it fades out. So I have a couple cross fades or cross dissolves on that graphic, on that image. See, I have it keyframed in here to slightly get larger as the track gets further along, and then the automation for the Gaussian blur here at the end of the track starts about there, and then just gets more blurry until it fades out into the background. I thought it was a simple enough effect to get the effect that I wanted. And then it's just a bunch of crossfades on these charts and graphs that were separated out stacked on top of each other, with the character on top starting about here. So I fade that character in. As for like the timing of when things fade in, I just kind of estimated. I just kind of did what felt correct in the video. There was no specific thing that I planned out for it. It's just whenever it feels like something should fade in or something hasn't happened for a while, I'll fade one in until you get to the full image. Originally, that wasn't separated. Then I nested the outro to have these two elements in there on their own so that I can animate them or keyframe them together for a little bit of a more advanced looking effect. But yeah, that is it. And this is the vague structure of like how I set up the project. You got the main images, you got the character being isolated, then the various other backgrounds isolated. I tried to be a little bit organized with it. It's a very small project, like amount of assets wise, so I didn't really feel like I need to do that much organization. The audio is just in the main bin. So, you know, it works. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, and I don't think there is. So if I'm correct in that, that's the video, and that's how I made Sodium. Sincerely, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I want to make more stuff like this, maybe with actual proper like animation, because it's somewhat animated, you know, but it works as like a short little animated short story. Oh, and then I guess the other thing that's different is I changed a little bit of my background or my banner on YouTube to reflect the project, but that's just kind of zooming in on the image and then adding some more halftone effects. Once again, if you want to see the full original short animated story, it is available on my channel. I will link it in a card and a description. But yeah, let me know what you thought about this video, and if you decide to go and check out Sodium, I will be very grateful, although it's not required, I guess, since you already were spoiled on the entire thing. If you do want to check it out, though, like I said, in the card, in the description, there will be a link somewhere. I don't have an outro for these videos, so yeah, thank you, much love, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. See you in the next one.